Started. So yeah, my name is Isaac O'Neill. I'm the retention specialist here at Oasis. And as everyone knows, we work very closely with Canada Life. And so yeah, we have Kim Ferris here today, who is our organizational health consultant at Canada Life to help us. She hosts webinars. She works very closely alongside us. Yeah, in a multitude of ways. And yeah, one of those things is hosting webinars for us. So um, today's webinar will be on psychologically safe interactions. So that's in a few different contexts within the workplace. Excuse me, working alongside clientele, feeling that safety from your peers, from your coworkers, from your managers and whatnot. Kim is obviously going to go into a lot of detail on all of that. And yeah, very relevant to Oasis, why we wanted to book that as far as knowing a lot of the sectors and kind of day-to-day roles that our members and employees work in as far as the healthcare sector and other sectors with vulnerable people, making sure that you feel supported and you know how to support the people around you in your workplace. So that's kind of a brief overview. Kim is going to obviously be going through the slides, and I'll kind of jump in a few different spots where I find appropriate. Yeah, to kind of maybe contextualize it a little bit more in the Oasis context. So yeah, I'll start there, and yeah, I'll pass it off to Kim.
Okay, thanks, Isaac, and welcome everyone. As Isaac mentioned, my name's Kimberly Ferris, and I'm an organizational health consultant at Canada Life, and I've been supporting the Oasis Disability Program. I have over 25 years experience in disability management, vocational rehabilitation, and organizational health and well-being. And I want to thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to explore how we can improve the way we interact with each other. Our lives are busy, both at work and at home, and we know the busier we get, the shorter the emails can get, and often the way we deliver information and speak to the people that we interact with sometimes can come across more curt than we intend. So for today's session that I'm facilitating, it's really about helping us take stock in how we improve our ways of interacting with our colleagues, teams, and customers. Now, the one thing I do want to highlight is this workshop I'm delivering it in the spirit of train the trainer. I know a lot of you may be people managers in your organization, and the materials that I'm presenting from are all available and free on workplace strategies for mental health. And so at the end of the presentation, you'll also get the resources there. So as Isaac mentioned, and I mentioned, the goal of today's session is to build psychological health and safety awareness to help us think about how we can strengthen the way we communicate and interact with each other in a way that promotes collaboration and avoids potential harm or crossing the line into what may be seen as psychologically unsafe. Now, today's session is going to be recorded, and I'm going to be, if you have questions or anything like that, please feel free to post them in the chat. I can't really see them, so I'm going to ask Isaac to monitor the chat and pipe in along the way. I want this to be as valuable as possible. So for the agenda, we're going to look at what is psychological well-being and defining what it is versus mental illness. We're going to provide some insights to what's behind the declining psychological health at work, defining what is health and safety, and then we're going to dive into the workshop. And the purpose of the workshop is to improve awareness of psychologically safe interaction. So we're going to cover three main areas: unintended consequences of what we say or do, the assumptions we make about others, and moral courage in our workplace. Okay, so to start off, we often use the terms mental health and mental illness interchangeably, mostly in an attempt to be politically correct. However, they're not the same thing. Mental or psychological health is a state of well-being. It encompasses our life experiences and how well we cope with life stressors. Psychological health is on a continuum where you can be thriving at one end or at the point of being at crisis at the other end. Mental illness is a diagnosable medical disorder that is caused by a combination of biological, psychological, genetic, and social factors. Mental illness causes pronounced and prolonged changes in thoughts, feelings, mood, and behavior, and leads to a high state of distress and an inability to function. And this is where it can get a bit tricky. A person can be psychologically struggling and not have a mental illness. Alternatively, a person can be diagnosed with the mental illness and can be psychologically well and even thriving if they are under appropriate care and their treatment is optimized. So, what is behind the declining psychological health at work? One, workplace stressors like heavy workloads, low rewards, or lack of control over task completion can be significant contributors to psychological health challenges. Studies are showing that burnout is on the rise, now impacting more than 39% of Canadian workers, according to a recent report of mental health in the workplace. Burnout stems from workplace conditions that leaves people feeling overwhelmed, exhausted, emotionally drained. It's actually more common with people who are highly driven or may have difficulty setting boundaries. Second, financial struggles. People are worried about financial stability. There's a lot of economic uncertainty, and the cost of living is expected to continue to rise. Psychological health is impacted by financial well-being. We've all seen the stats connected to financial well-being, to mental health, and how financial stress has been on the rise over the last several years. Currently, 48% of Canadians now report that they lose sleep due to financial stress. Third, chronic and secondary health conditions. More and more people are living and working with chronic conditions. Chronic conditions like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, obesity, mental health, chronic pain, etc., are all common chronic conditions that people are currently living and working with. The 2025 Benefit Canada Healthcare Survey found that 59% of plan members reported experiencing at least one chronic condition. And if you have an older population in your workplace, the risk of people experiencing a chronic condition is about 75% higher. And finally, a fourth factor impacting health at work is the actual hurdles to getting help. So understanding what you have in your benefit plan or overcoming your self-stigma is a real barrier to getting access to help. Many people still hesitate to disclose their struggles, and those who do not disclose and seek help face challenges with gaining access to care. And then this can lead to the worsening of existing conditions, feelings of isolation, support, stress, and helplessness. So without the proper support or a psychologically safe workplace, individuals may struggle to cope. So everything we will be talking about today comes down to psychological health and safety in the workplace. So if you break it down, psychological health is the ability to think, feel, behave in a way that we can manage work and home effectively and contribute to society. Psychological safety is about identifying aspects of work that could cause psychological harm or injury and either reduces them or puts in place protective measures. Therefore, psychological health and safety promotes employee psychological well-being and actively prevents psychological harm due to negligent, reckless, or intentional acts. So the goal is to eliminate risk or, when not possible, increase protective measures. So and we know, especially in your industries, it's not always possible to protect your employees from angry customers or patients, but you can support them with awareness. For example, de-escalation training, security backup, and team support. And I understand, I'm going to turn it over to Isaac for a second, just to kind of highlight what is available in the OASIS program.
Yeah, thanks, Kim. Yeah, so many of you either know or or have our Employee Assistance Program, our EAP, where you're able to access lots of different types of mental health and wellness supports via Green Shield Plus. So yeah, as we've promoted it a lot more the last couple of years. And yeah, and then many of you would have also heard about in the fall that we did a similar kind of train the trainer, train the manager for kind of equipping people to understand what they have in their EAP, so then you can equip your employees and share with them what they have for that as well. So one facet of that webinar, which is available on our YouTube channel for you to look back if you have not seen it, is incident management training. So anytime there's a critical incident at your work, you are able to contact Green Shield and as a team and as an organization and access critical incident support. So that is one area of your EAP program that is, tangibly able to help hopefully have managers, employees, supervisors feel safer in their workplace for knowing that when difficult situations happen or again critical incidents, something maybe a little more serious, you do have support through Oasis in that respect.
Thanks, Isaac. So when I mention aspects of work, I'm referring to psychological factors that impact psychological health or safety of employees, each ranging on a continuum from protective to harmful. The words on the bottom of the slide are there. So on the bottom of the slide, I've listed some words. Those on the left reflect psychological factors that promote psychological well-being, while those on the right can have the opposite effect and risk psychological harm to an individual. So the focus is on protection and promotion of three basic human needs and rights within the workplace: dignity and respect, security, integrity, and autonomy, and organizational justice. Lack of accountability, fairness, lack of clear objectives, tools, equipment, or resources to complete work tasks are things that can impact psychological well-being. Lack of support from supervisors, coworkers, and access to services, lack of training, etc. So if we look at one example, psychological protection. To eliminate this risk, there would be no discrimination or harassment at work. But in workplaces that deal with patient and clients, it may be impossible to guarantee their behavior will always be ideal. So to reduce risk to employees' psychological health and safety, the employer or organization may invest more time and resources into that psychological factor of psychological and social support. And they may reinforce how staff support each other when dealing with a difficult client. So just like Isaac mentioned, you have that program and resources available through Green Shield. When psychological factors become harmful, it increases the likelihood of an individual experiencing deterioration in their psychological health and results in reduced productivity or could lead to absences. And an extremely stressful event results in psychological trauma. Exposure to constant psychological distress, such as demoralization, anxiety, or burnout, has the potential to reach a level of a diagnosable mental disorder. So while employees may bring psychological distress to work from their personal lives, psychological injury can be created or aggravated during the course of work. So you can see here the costs of reduced productivity and absences to Canadian employers. At Canada Life, we are now seeing 39% of our new long-term disability claims are due to mental illnesses. And under the Oasis disability program, mental health conditions account for 35% of your new LTD claims in 2025, but 40% of your overall total open long-term disability claims. There's also a potential for the workplace to be liable if psychological harm is found to be the result of an intentional act or failure to act by the workplace. WCB and WSIB are now accepting claims as a result of workplace trauma and chronic stress, such as harassment. In October of last year, Quebec passed a bill that could require employers to formally identify, assess, prevent, and mitigate psychosocial risks in the workplace. Risks include workload, lack of decision-making, autonomy, inadequate recognition, low social support, and organizational injustice. While this is currently just specific to Quebec, it may just be a matter of time before it extends to other provinces. However, research is showing that there are benefits for employers to invest in psychological safety and well-being of their employees. So Workplace Strategies and Canada Life were involved in compiling a couple of reports. One is called The Cost of Inaction, and the other is through the Workplace Mental Health Organization. These reports speak to the benefits and return on investment for organizations who prioritize psychological health and safety. And here you can see some key findings. Mental Health Research Canada, $1.7 million per year, or $34,000 per employee per year of a 500 life company, can be saved with burnout prevention. Often organizations are looking for that ROI, return on investment. In a recent study in that cost of inaction report, Canada Life highlighted a Deloitte study that found $1.62 return on investment for every dollar spent on mental health support was seen as an ROI. So really the story is that there is an ROI for workplace mental health, but it's also good for your people and it's good for your business. Okay, so with all that said, we've laid the groundwork, we've given you the data, we've given you the definitions, and so now we're going to move into the psychologically safe interaction workshop. And within our workplaces, we have a multitude of interactions with staff, with customers, and with each other, leaders with staff, and with customers and each other, senior leaders with leaders and each other, and so on and so forth. According to the Canadian Centre for Occupational Health and Safety, it's sometimes hard to know if bullying is happening in the workplace. Many studies acknowledge there's a fine line between strong management and bullying. Most often, people are not aware that a coworker or direct report may be experiencing their behavior as harmful. They may think they're being direct or passionate or simply expressing frustration, but others may experience their behavior quite differently. So the goal of this session is to consider how behaviors or words may contribute to psychologically unsafe interactions. We really do not want to wait for interactions to reach a level as considered bullying. While psychologically safe interactions won't eliminate all conflicts or inappropriate behavior and language, they do help address and resolve them quickly, respectfully, and consistently. Okay, so psychologically safe interactions don't cause undue stress or fear in others. It is the foundation for supporting all employees to feel safe, speaking up about legitimate concerns in the workplace, effectively resolve most disagreements themselves, respectfully intervene when witnessing inappropriate behavior, and feel included and valued. This doesn't mean we will never disagree or that we won't occasionally have a bad day. It does mean that our disagreements and bad days will not have a significant negative impact on others. So over the course of this workshop, we'll go through a series of questions to help you decide what is psychologically safe for your workplace. And this all means what psychologically safe interactions for your workplace that means for you and your team. So in some cases, I may have you use the react symbols such as hand clapping or thumbs up, or I may ask you to put responses in the chat or reflect quietly in your workbook. So given we're providing this virtually and in a short period of time, there's not an opportunity for open discussion. But if you were sitting with your colleagues and teams delivering this session, you would want consensus to follow the guidelines listed here while you're participating in this workshop. Ultimately, we want to focus on constructive ideas. Not everyone you work with needs to be your good friend, but everyone is expected to work together professionally. So we can all agree. So can we all agree to follow these guidelines? So give me some clapping hands in the chat. Make sure you guys are still there. Chat, clap, clap, clap. Awesome. Okay, great. So on page 3 of the participant handbook, this is where we're going now. We are impacted by the interactions with others every day. This could include the situations listed here. Let's take these interactions and consider what might be needed to make them psychologically safer to you. Keeping in mind that the people you're interacting with may be going through a personal health or financial stressor that may make it hard for them to respond in the way you would prefer. And what you prefer is not the expectation. Professional and respective interactions, even on a bad day, is the expectation. So let's consider someone disagrees by insulting your intelligence. It probably won't be effective to insult them back, even if you want to, but you can acknowledge that there's room for a difference of opinion and ask that we stick to the issue rather than make things personal. In a team setting, anyone can speak up, and it does not have to be the person insulted. Let's consider a leader provides negative feedback that feels harsh or uncalled for. You could get defensive or shut down, or you could ask specifically for how you could do things differently or improve rather than focusing on the negative feedback. Someone takes credit for your work. Ask for the feedback on how your contribution helped. If it's about someone else, ask who else contributed. A client or customer is upset. Consider obtaining de-escalation training to help deal with the confrontational situation so they are less harmful. Also, you could develop a process to help each other debrief and obtain the support from them. To improve awareness for psychologically safe interactions, we're going to cover the 3 main areas today. The first is perception versus intention. We'll explore this by asking questions that help us think about how our own behaviors and reactions impact others. Sometimes people experience behavior as harmful, even when it wasn't intended that way. In fact, it can be shocking to hear different interpretations of what we said or did. But there's a difference between our intentions and someone else's perceptions. The next is checking assumptions. We don't always realize when we make assumptions about the intentions of other people, which causes us to interpret their behavior as hurtful. We need to examine our assumptions and choose how we react to build resilience against the effects of psychologically unsafe behavior. And third, the last area is moral courage. And this is the area that I found very interesting. This is our ability to intervene in a respectful way. Intervening when we witness psychologically unsafe behavior is not easy. It's not uncommon to feel uncomfortable or question whether we have the authority to intervene. This is especially true when the person exhibiting the behavior has more power or rank than we do. We might be afraid of the consequences if we choose to intervene or worry it could look like we're bullying the bully. So let's start with perception versus intention. On page 4, what you will see or hear or experience that would show you what would you see, hear, or experience that would show you someone was weak or strong in character? In the chat, write 1 or 2 words that would describe the characteristic of a weak person. Just going to open my chat here so I can see what you guys are writing. Okay, nobody wants to write in the chat what they would think of a weak person, one characteristic. Oh, gossip, yep. Aggressive behavior, quiet, meek, unassuming. These are great words. Okay, now write in the chat some words that you would describe as a strong character. Or if you don't want to write it in the chat, you can also put it in your handbook. There's no right or wrong answers because these are just our perceptions. And you may find you have the same descriptor for both weak and strong characteristics. For example, vulnerability could actually be considered both weak and strong. So now let's consider how our impressions of people, how our impressions of people as weak or strong could be wrong. So reflect on how you might treat someone if you incorrectly judge them as weak or strong. How might they misinterpret your behavior? For example, you may perceive a peer or a leader as strong and challenge them on their ideas with the intention of showing interest. However, they may not actually be as confident as you perceive them to be and may see your challenges as attacks. This next question is about the practicality of seeing consensus or sitting down for a discussion about everything that needs to be done. Collaboration can be a useful process, but there are situations we just need to give direction and be clear about direction, and there's no room for negotiation because of policy, regulation, quality control, or safety issues. Problems arise when we expect one approach but get the other. Think about a specific work situation that one should require direction to be followed, or two should include collaboration, and three could be either situation. If people on your team are expecting a collaborative discussion, however, you're expecting them to follow direction, no questions asked, can lead people to feeling dismissed, bullied, when they share their opinion or ideas and get shut down and ignored. By being clear about which approach we're using, we can manage expectations and avoid some of these misunderstandings. As leaders, employers, we often believe that others know our constraints and the reasons for our decisions. But we need to realize that's actually not the case. We need to be aware of our own emotional states and how that influences whether we are giving direction or seeking collaborations. However, once we know how others may interpret our inconsistency, we can be more intentional about sharing our intended approach. There are many other ways our motives may seem obvious to us, but not to others. Many of us get excited about ideas or feeling righteous about perceived injustices, but how do others experience our words and behaviors when we're feeling passionate about something? For example, when I get excited about ideas, I may blurt out or interrupt others, and I know that is something that I continue to work on. It's a forever Kim project. And I see it as passion, but others may see it as rude, dismissive, or aggressive. So take a moment to record or write down on page 6 how you might behave when you're passionate about an idea or injustice. Again, record only what others might see, hear, or experience, rather than what you might feel or think. In the example I gave, if I'm not able to contain myself, I can learn to recognize it, explain that I'm excited, and apologize for blurting out. This can maybe help my intent a little bit. We all have moments of frustration on work. So on page 7, take 30 seconds to think about what you do when you get frustrated. Do you retreat to your office and close the door? Do you go into overdrive and speak abruptly with more details? Do you raise your voice? Do you diminish others or dismiss them? If a frustrated person goes into their office and closes the door, other people may feel shunned or isolated. They may also feel like the frustrated person is plotting against them behind closed doors. Raising our voice or speaking abruptly could be seen as intimidation, or it could be triggering to someone who has a sensitivity to noise or perhaps a childhood trauma. If we express frustration in ways that diminishes others, it can be seen as bullying. Failing to pay attention to what others are saying because we are distracted can be interpreted as dismissive. If we take out our frustration out on others by blaming them, we can be viewed as harassment. Example, some people may go into more detail when they're frustrated. Their intention may be to make sure things get done well, but this may come across as micromanaging or lacking trust. If you are raising your voice, if it doesn't come up and you think it's relevant for your group, share that a raised voice can trigger some people. For example, it can relate to sensitivity to noise and childhood trauma, the perception of intimidation or bullying. Others could interpret our behaviors when we're frustrated as intimidation, bullying, dismissive, isolating, or harassment. We all get frustrated at work from time to time, and here we want to explore alternatives to behaviors that can have a negative impact on others. One example is to go for a walk to regain composure before speaking or acting. Another is to take a few minutes to record what you're frustrated about and search for a solution. This is one question that may take you a few minutes to think about and respond to. So I will let you do this one on your own. On page 8 or in your workbook or on a piece of paper, write down as many alternative ways to manage your frustrations at work. And make sure that your ideas will work for you in your particular work setting. Okay, we've examined how others may perceive our behaviors quite differently from how we intended them. Moving on to our second area to improve awareness for psychologically safe interactions, we'll now look at how we may have assumptions about how other people behave. And again, we're going to explore this through a series of questions. For this question, we're talking about how we respond to others who express their frustration on page 9. Think of a time when a coworker was flustered or overwhelmed. What did you think about their behavior and how did you react? It does not matter what the person did. This is about how your reaction was to their frustration. You don't need to go into detail. Just a few descriptive words are fine. So again, think of a coworker and like a coworker who was flustered and overwhelmed, and how did you react? Just a few words. Because alternatively, what if it was a leader who was flustered or overwhelmed? How did you react to their behavior? Did you react differently to the coworker than you did to your leader? Would your reaction be different if it was your boss? If yes, put a thumbs up in the chat. If no, put a thumbs down. That's a good comment. I'm confused if it's my boss. Yeah, it's interesting depending on if it's a leader versus a coworker, how you interpret and react. We all react in different ways. Some people respond defensively and some people become angry themselves. Others may feel ridiculed or humiliated or even fearful. Some people may respond with pity. There are those who may react from a place of curiosity. Just as our frustration can be misinterpreted by others, we can also misinterpret the frustration of others. We may assume their frustration is aimed at us when really it isn't. Your boss and all leaders are human and will have times of frustration. But when does their behavior cross the line? Most of us don't appreciate someone telling us when we're doing something wrong. Yet, it's part of the job for you as a leader to provide feedback to correct or grow individual and team performance. Leaders must walk a careful line. They must ensure balance between driving individual and organizational performance and protecting psychological safety. The question is asking you to identify behaviors you feel cross the line between managing people, even when we may not like it, and engaging in psychologically unsafe behavior. This doesn't need to meet the threshold of harassment. Take 30 seconds to write down your thoughts. I agree. I respond differently at home versus at work. Yes, we all have different hats that we wear. Our view of what feels like psychologically unsafe behavior for leaders can vary based on many factors, including our current health, emotional state, stress levels, and our past history with the leader. We want to avoid making assumptions about the motives of others, especially when we're dealing with our own stressors. In fact, pausing and considering what they might be going through is often a good way to reframe so we can have a conversation seeking a solution. We also want employees to be able to share what they feel crosses the line with all leaders, so everyone can manage expectations and behaviors in a way that supports psychological safety. And criticism isn't just for leaders. We all may comment on others' work style or personality in a critical or negative way, but there's a difference between constructive criticism and psychologically unsafe interactions. When do you feel criticism crosses the line to harassment? Take 30 seconds to write down your response. What feels like psychologically unsafe feedback can be different for everyone. We're influenced by our upbringing, current emotional state, health, and our history with that particular individual. So if we feel differently about unsafe feedback, how do we help create more psychological safety for ourselves? We need to be explicit about what our needs are. We know that receiving criticism in the work is inevitable in the workplace. And think about an approach that would work best for you. Consider this question: how do you prefer to perceive critical feedback? Anyone should be able to follow your direction and provide you with critical feedback without you becoming defensive or hurt. By being explicit about your preferences related to the words that are used, where and when feedback is given, body language, tone of voice, and type of feedback, you make it easier for someone to provide that feedback for you. Think about what motivates you to do better and what may trigger you to feel defensive. And a little shout out, and I know Oasis is promoting it on May 6th. Canada Life is hosting another webinar. It's called Coaching Up. And I think that webinar that we're providing aligns with this. It's about helping people find the words and the voice that they need to come to their people leader to ask for accommodation or support. On page 12 and 13 in your workbook, there's a feedback preference form where you can write down your preferences on how you like to receive feedback. Leaders can implement all or most of the things that we have in common, but they will only know what works best for you if you tell them. By writing it down first, this can help you with your discussion with your leader, or if you're a leader, you can give these to your employees to provide to you so you know how to provide feedback. And as I mentioned, no two people are the same. And so we want to make sure we're not making assumptions. So this may be a tool that you may want to use in your own practices. And again, it's in this workbook and also within Workplace Strategies for Mental Health website.
Yeah, Kim, I'll jump in here and yeah, just want to kind of praise kind of the area here of discussion as far as constructive criticism and having feedback. That's obviously a very important culture for any workplace. But yeah, again, kind of in the context of Oasis, and you know, the stakes can be higher sometimes when coaching or talking about how an interaction went with a client, maybe a vulnerable person that you're helping or working with, whether it's in healthcare, the addiction sector, whatever it might be for our Oasis members. The stakes are high, right? And it's very important to make sure that both the leaders are cultivating, you know, a culture of being able to provide feedback and it not step on toes and kind of be on the same page with your entire team. So yeah, I just really like this kind of line of thought that you're diving into here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Isaac. And I agree. The interaction in the chat is very helpful. It's nice to see that everybody is aligned and finding the words on what they feel is appropriate and how it can help them. For the coaching up session, Isaac, I'll leave that to you to resend out the invite. There is a webinar link that you can sign up for, and it's on May 6th.
Yeah, I'll try and post it in the chat here. If I can't get it in the next little bit, then I'll make sure it gets sent out to people as well.
Yeah.
So hold
and
tight
again,
there.
it's really focused for the employees, but you as people leaders absolutely can attend as well. So let's look at checking assumptions and when, so-called teasing crosses the line into discrimination. And this could include teasing or jokes based on gender, race, disability, or religion. But let's consider when it may be less obvious. For example, someone may think they're just kidding around and they, are joking and punch you in the arm and say, oh, you're just being crazy. Or if someone who has experienced, if you're someone who has experienced physical violence or someone whose family member lives with a serious mental illness, this so-called good-natured teasing may be hurtful. So this question, when do you feel the so-called good-natured teasing crossing the line, makes us think about when and how our actions or words can be harmful or unwelcome to you or others. For example, jokes about old people may seem funny until you're dealing with a grandparent or with Alzheimer's. There's no right or wrong answers to what may be hurtful to you. This is how you feel. This is your perception. The purpose of this exercise is for each of us to become more aware of how we may unintentionally be hurting or offending others. The example I have just given about making fun of an elderly may be a sensitive topic to those who are elderly or for those who are caring for them. And I would think this group of people would be well aware of these type of sensitivities. We'd hate to lose our sense of humor at work, but when humor crosses the line to make others feel uncomfortable or ridiculed, it's not psychologically safe. So for this next question, what behaviors would you report or stop without hesitation? Record your responses in the chat. For example, threats of violence or physical aggression. As you think about unacceptable behaviors, also consider, are there situations where these behaviors may be excusable? What if someone acted with physical aggression, which we can agree is completely unacceptable, but we learn later that the person that they were aggressive with had been taunting them for weeks? Would we allow for that additional reflection? Sometimes it can be difficult to make consistent decision about behaviors without knowing the whole story. If you were asking this with your particular team, you may want to consider gathering the responses and reviewing them against your existing protocols and policies. So we've looked at how others may misinterpret our intentions. We've also considered that we may make assumptions about the behaviors of others. And this awareness can improve our emotional intelligence and our working relationships. But what do you do when you witness someone else's inappropriate behavior? Do you speak up or remain silent? Do you get angry and confrontational yourself? And do you offer support to the person that is being targeted? Any of these reactions may allow the negative or harmful behaviors to continue or even worsen. Using the same confrontational behavior you're trying to stop is not a psychologically safe approach. But having the courage to speak up is only half of the skill set needed here. The other half is to confront the situation in a respectful way using what we've referred to as moral courage. This means speaking up in a way that is respectful to all parties. It's human nature for us to make assumptions about what we're witnessing, but the intention of either party may not be what you think it is. When we practice moral courage, we are objective and respond in a supportive and open manner. This can help turn potentially harmful situations into one that reinforces good working relationships. And this is our third and last topic for supporting awareness. So this is on page 17 of your workbook. When people witness what appears to be bullying, emotional responses can vary among people. Some people may feel angry or outraged. Others may feel sad, embarrassed for one or both people. And some people may feel helpless or afraid. Not reacting at all may leave us regretting that we didn't do more to intervene. But intervening may not leave us feeling much better. We may worry that we'll become the target of the bully or be shunned by the either or both individuals if they don't appreciate our intervention. We may even be accused of making the situation worse. The point is, inappropriate behavior in the workplace can affect us all. It can negatively impact the mental well-being and safety of everyone, not just those involved in the confrontation. Think about times when you saw someone being unkind or intimidating. Think about your reaction to the situation in which you felt unsafe to intervene. And then think about your reaction in situations in which you were able to intervene. I want you to take time with this one so that you can record your response in the handout on your own. Yes, Tracy, witnessing bullying is a source of vicarious trauma. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. That is the hamburger thing. That is an interesting approach of a leader. Not funny. When you hear someone yelling at a coworker, do you intervene, ignore it, or just stand there? Or if you see the gum situation, what do you do? Take a few seconds to answer this question in the workbook. Be as honest and objective as you can. Truthfully, if it was me, I would likely just stand there until it was over, then check on the person being yelled at to see if they were okay. And depending on my comfort level with the person doing the yelling, I may check in on them too. It's not unusual for us to sit frozen in silence when we don't know what else to say or do, or we may react emotionally when we are witnessing bullying, exactly what you're saying, that vicarious trauma. What we want to do is hope to create together in this session is a more respectful way to intervene. But what if the person yelling was the leader? Would you respond differently? It may feel even more challenging to intervene with someone who has more power or authority. If we learn to intervene in a non-confrontational way using moral courage, we can do so no matter what or who the person is. Developing an approach that everyone on your team can all agree on will make it easier to intervene respectfully with everyone, including your leaders. Remember, the person doing the yelling may be going through a personal, work, health, or family stressor. It's not an excuse for yelling, but it's important to not immediately assume they're bullying for the sake of being mean. So take this into account when you think of your approach to the situation. The first step would be to consider how you think leaders should respond if they witness one coworker yelling at another. And let's conclude with how you would go about formulating an approach that will work for you as a leadership team or with your team of direct reports. It will be beneficial for you to collectively decide on respectful and direct responses to emotionally intense behaviors. Any approach that is agreed upon in advance as being respectful and supportive are less likely to be misinterpreted. As you may recall, psychologically unsafe behaviors can range from frustration, rudeness, to bullying and harassment. So with this exercise, as a group, you determine the potential responses to such behavior. So try to recognize that person behaving inappropriately may be feeling overwhelmed or upset. You can give them the benefit of the doubt by respectfully bringing to their attention the possibility that their behavior could be hurtful. For example, if I raise my voice because I'm passionate about an idea, what could you say to remind me that I might be unintentionally intimidating others? You could say something like, "Hey, Kim, while you feel strongly about your idea, all ideas are welcome and presented respectfully. The idea is to give me the benefit of the doubt that I'm not intending to harm." Or you could maybe try a different approach and say, "Hey, can you reframe this? Or maybe we should take a quick break. Everyone will know what we're doing, but reminding me of my behavior that it may not be ideal. But I also get a chance to save face and start over again." Consider the most respectful way to remind each other of this, using words that are least likely to feel sarcastic or patronizing, and more likely to be heard as respectful or neutral. On page 18 to 19, there's an exercise you can use with your teams to come up with ideas on how to best respond to emotionally intense behaviors. The goal is to find a response that is unlikely to trigger defensiveness and would be received as supported by everyone in your team or group. So once you have identified what their approach should be, the team then can agree on the rules of engagement. And here on the slide is an example. And again, within Workplace Strategies for Mental Health, through the Psychologically Safe Interactions workshop, you can see other examples within the website. And there's a number of other supports in helping you come up with your rules of engagement. And finally, I would like you to think about what would you do differently at work as a result of today's discussion. It could relate to how you will communicate, how you will check your own assumptions about people, or how you will respectfully speak up when you witness unsafe behaviors. If all of us can be more aware of our words and actions, we'll be able to create a psychologically safer work for everyone. And as I mentioned, everything that I've spoken about today is available through Workplace Strategies for Mental Health. And now that you've had the experience of this workshop and can see how it can be designed to promote discussions amongst your own teams or a senior leadership team within the organization, the OASIS organization, please do so. This workshop has the PowerPoint slides, participant handbook, and facilitator guides. So I hope that you found today valuable. And I'm just going to check the chat and see if there's any other questions in there. What I might do here is show you, I have a few minutes. This is the website, Workplace Strategies for Mental Health. And so under the section Approaches for People Leaders is where you will find a number of resources for you to support people in your workplace. And then if you're wanting to further build upon your leadership skills, there is a number of different workshops and tools and resources that you can leverage to support. And today's workshop can be found in the assessment tools and workshop area.
Yeah, there's tons of great resources in there, everyone. We do try and post them in the newsletter, in the Oasis newsletter from time to time. Yeah, if you're not subscribed to that, they are posted on our website. I also posted my email in the chat here, and you can reach out to me and we can make sure to get you subscribed if you're not already. Yeah, lots of great resources there, both on the Workplace Strategies for Mental Health website and in the Oasis newsletter. Yeah, so to continue to be connected and make sure you're up to speed and up to date on various webinars such as this. Yeah, we continue to try and be proactive on helping train not just employees, but managers and supervisors as well. So yeah, I wanted to thank you, Kim, again for the time
No
today.
problem.
Yeah.
Also, I just realized that you can also register for the webinar directly on the Workplace Strategies website. And there's also other webinars that are coming up. You can always check back here on the website as well.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I will make sure that I will be following up to this to the email that we sent out to everyone inviting you to this webinar. I'll be following up with a link to the Oasis YouTube page, which will have this posted. It will have the handbook posted, and we'll make sure that is in there as well. So we'll kind of have that wrap up and set it up for the May 6th webinar as well to make sure everyone kind of has all those resources in one place.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Kim. Everyone, yeah, you take care. Have yourself a great rest of the day.
Take care.
Bye-bye.